Hey, so I'm going to re-record this talk I did yesterday at Sozu House. This is all about founder Riz, but it can apply to anyone that is looking to build their own personal brand. And I geared this talk towards developers, those who code, those who are founders and builders. We'll cover, does it even matter? Like, why should you care? Why is it important? What is marketing and how it relates to building your own brand? Uh, we'll also go through rhizomatics. This is a slide I added in, mainly because I know as systematic thinkers, which developers often can be, they want to think about frameworks and how to put it in different boxes. So, and we'll also talk about, standing on business, just doing it. I'm going to shout out Claire Cart from Aztec, who has done this for many in her career. And you'll see at the end just one of her slides from GTMCon. A little bit about me. I'm a full-time marketer, spend way too much time on X. Prior to going to crypto marketing in the last 3 years, I spent a lot of time in performance marketing and growth for e-commerce, SaaS, apps, anything from consumer to B2B to SaaS for other businesses, which is B2B, local businesses. So I'm a marketer at heart, and I currently am CMO at Hype. So Hype is an on-chain super agency. We've been around for 7 years. There's about 90 of us globally, and we've worked with a lot of these projects up here. So that is just a slight brag about my team, who is not as active online as maybe I am. So why should you care? This is a screenshot from a conversation I had with an investor talking about one of their portcos. They were looking to hire a marketer and called out, the founders have no riz, it's just product and tech. So I'm working on that also. I think ultimately, you as a founder, you as a builder, you want to see your company succeed and you want to get it to the next milestone, whether that is being able to raise again or profitability or becoming cash flow positive. So everything comes down to how do you get distribution, and your investors, your VCs will care about that as well as anyone that is a stakeholder. So ultimately, your brand grows the company's awareness. I also want to preface and say, if anyone here watching this wants to build a personal brand, you don't have to be a developer or a builder. This is likely relevant for you as well. It all comes down to people follow people, not brand accounts. So I was recently curious, what is actually happening? And I wrote about this, and the way I could use data to understand if people were following brands versus people was using a tool like Kaito that is constantly scraping new followers and has a timestamp next to it. These might be really small, but over here you can see the different time ranges where someone last followed. And the conditions I put on this was I would look at the person who was representing the brand. So in this case, I do represent Hype, that's my employer. And I also looked at the brand itself. And I looked at everyone who followed them in the last 48 hours. So as you can see here, I've been pretty active this week at DevCon, especially after GTMCon, which was a full conference for crypto marketers. I noticed that my following went up, and I was curious how many of that attributed to Hype as well. And you can see that 19 people followed me, the human, possibly an AI bot, and only 4 followed the brand or company. The other thing to call out too is there's quite a few people at Hype and these next few companies I'll show you that are on the ground. So it's not just one person, but you will see, for example, Brother Bing from Mega ETH, 9 people followed her, where 5 people followed Mega ETH. And there are multiple people from Mega ETH on the ground, right? They're hosting events. There's also a case study coming up about what they've done that will hopefully make this a bit more relatable and help the knowledge be absorbed. But you can see here, it's the same case where more people are following her versus Mega ETH. Smokey the Bear, same thing. 8 people followed him in the last 48 hours versus 6 to Barachain. Keone from Monad, same exact thing, 10 to 7. This last one, I was starting to think like, okay, these are all of the biggest cult leaders of the space. I'm probably missing a few others. Maybe I need to look at someone who may not have as much mind share or yap attribution. Shout out to Kaido for the new dashboards, and is more similar to an account like mine where it's quite small. Really weird talking about followers, by the way, in this way, but I hope this data is helpful. So Jin, who I think is a very underrated marketer and really has AI workflows dialed in, he is doing marketing for Nuffle. And as you can see in the last 48 hours, after Sunday when he presented at GTMCon, 32 new people followed him versus one under Nuffle. Okay, so there is an outlier, and shout out Michelle from Octant, who mentioned to me, like, that's not the case for us actually. And she's right. I looked at everyone that followed her versus Octant in November. 5 went to her, 15 went to the company. This is a case where me as a marketer, I would actually go through and try to reverse engineer exactly what they are doing to get to this effect. And I did that very briefly. There's probably a lot more I missed, but you can really tell that like 36 minutes ago, they are actively replying and they are very active in connecting with their community and people that are familiar with Octant. And they also have a really casual tone of voice. So there's many other things they're possibly doing. But this is not the only way, but a majority of the data points to people follow people, not brand accounts. Okay, ultimately, without distribution, no one knows who you are, what you do, and why it matters. So all of this is purely for distribution. And I want to call this out and just echo it because I know oftentimes founders are thinking like, why should I be focused on building my brand and tweeting on X or putting my face out there? Why? I need to focus on building my product. I completely understand that. I do think the world is changing and all of the data is supporting that you do need to get distribution online, especially when our attention spans are getting smaller. When crypto is becoming more competitive, there's so many new projects popping up and the audience is still quite small. Hopefully it grows, but it's still looking like there is a large user journey to come from understanding Bitcoin to then understanding things like Polymarket to then understanding all the nuances of unification layers, data availability, L2s. So it all comes down to distribution. And if you are a builder that is looking to get to that next milestone, you do need to do the things that will help you do this, whether that is talking to marketers or getting a marketer on your team. But it all comes down to distribution. The other thing I will add as well is when you are a very early stage project and you're also trying to do idea validation, it's never been easier than with the internet to connect with possible users and ask them, what do they think? Have them demo the product, see how they play around with it. The internet allows you to do this from anywhere in the world. So just look at this as, even though it might be uncomfortable, even though it feels like it's not the important thing to do, whether you do this or not, or you have someone on your team distill your conviction, it all comes down to distribution so you can succeed and win. All right, so what is marketing? How do? I was thinking before going straight to building your personal brand, I want to give a high-level overview on what marketing even is, specifically marketing strategy. Main reason for this is because if you're a developer or a builder, you might not be in the weeds of marketing. And this is a really busy slide. This is actually something that I have shared internally with our teams at Hype. And what I really want people to take away from this slide is growth tactics and marketing tactics completely separate from marketing strategy. So let's start with what marketing strategy is not. It's not logo x logo. It's not building a Telegram mini app. It's not putting out the best newsletter piece ever. It's not switching your positioning to a unification layer or data availability or restaking. It's not an abstract 3D launch vid. What it is it's a plan on how to achieve certain goals. And it makes up your audience, who you are trying to target. There could be multiple, what narratives and messaging you are communicating to them, how the plan is executed on reaching them, as well as those tactics, content, and any best practices. I realized that I did not remove this piece because this was an internal slide deck to our own team. Okay, so high level, how do you put a strategy together? Start here and go down. So start at the top of the pyramid and go down. All right, some questions to ask yourself on positioning at the very top. Ekram from Celestia is likely the best at this, and he's really distilled it down to a few frameworks that you can apply as a crypto company. So I highly recommend watching his YouTube video, reaching out to him. But ultimately, when you ask the right questions, it allows marketers or yourself to distill how to communicate it to the audiences. So the main questions I would encourage you to ask are, why does your business and company deserve to exist? How are we solving these problems better than our competitors? And also, why now? Why does this timing make sense? Look at all of the failures with XR, such as Google Glass, that never made it to fruition. On audiences, after you understand your positioning, you're really thinking about who has these problems that we can solve. And it could be multiple different subsets of people. Ecosystems, for example, they are both reaching developers and builders that maybe they have a more optimized chain to build on, or more distribution or more users on there. And there's also the users themselves. Narratives and messaging. So these are kind of the core messages that you will take from your positioning statement and using it to reach different audiences. So what must these people hear to realize that we care about and can resolve their problems? And after you have all of this, then you can actually think about channels, tactics, and content. So where do we find these people, and who else can we involve? What types of content styles, whether it's video, spaces, long form, short form, should we do? Everything in marketing is a bet, and there's so many different things you can do, right? But as a founder, as a builder, as a marketer, we are making calculated bets based on data and based on research and based on what we think will actually reach these people and help us hit our goals. Okay, so I have a case study here with Mega ETH. I use them a lot. Let me move this over. We will keep it there. So Mega ETH's positioning, and you can do this for other companies as well. I think a lot of Web2 companies have really nailed it. When you Google a company, how they show up in Google search or SERPs, the search engine results, that usually is a no fluff statement of who they are. And oftentimes it could be their positioning statement. So in this case for Mega ETH, what I clocked it as is Mega ETH is real-time Ethereum, streaming transactions at lightning speed, sub-millisecond latency, and over 100,000 TPS. Positioning statements are a straightforward, no fluff statement of who you are. It includes the what, the how, the why, your differentiation relative to the rest of the market. On audiences. So if you look at their initial launch where they talked about, they had their hello world moment. They had a whole thread introducing, hey, this is who we are. This is why I'm building it. This is what you can expect. And if you follow through that funnel, it all goes down to, if you're a builder, come build on us. So they are ultimately reaching builders, and you can see this through their builder program. Now, when you're thinking about audiences, and there could be multiple, I also have a whole thing on data-driven marketing that can dive into the different stages if you'd like to watch it another time. However, if you're thinking about audiences, some questions to ask are ultimately like, who are these people? So we only have 24 hours in a day. Out of those 24 hours, what do they spend doing? What are they reading? Where do they hang out online? Who do they hang out with? Who do they trust? Specifically for reaching builders, it would be, what languages do they code in? What communities or ecosystems are they part of? That last one could be related to consumer apps as well. Narratives and messaging. So I think Mega ETH has really done a great job sticking with this real-time tagline, and all of their visuals represent speed. It's real time. You see it everywhere. They also some other taglines if you go into their Discord, such as "Make Ethereum Great Again," and a lot of this is putting it out in the world, seeing how audiences react to it, and seeing if you can co-create the brand perception with audiences. So a lot of what you'll see from them in their visual identity, their colors, their videos, the way it's edited, and also text is iterating this real time over and over again. There are other messages as well. So for example, when there was this meta or narrative of where are all the apps, they went ahead and jumped right on that and were like, these are all the apps being built on us. Or when people were asking, why another L2, they went straight to combat that as well. So also being aware of the market and what people are talking about in the market allows you to identify opportunities to be in the conversation. And you can do this both from the brand as well as if you are the founder of the brand. Okay, the very last thing is channel tactics and content. And you'll see that specifically for Mega ETH. They are using multiple channels. There's YouTube, there's Discord. I think Shu Yao also has a Substack, a newsletter. I get emails from it. And she's also tweeting a lot, right? So she's very active. She's replying back. They have events. They also have multiple community-based, geolocated based communities. So they're distributing across different channels, people, content types. And these are all different tactics. They also are putting out a wider net for non-technical or people that don't code like me, how to get them involved with bounty programs, whether that is repurposing content that they do already and posting it. And you can just see from this collection of screenshots, their video content on the left, you'll often see faces of the founder. There is short form content very similar to IG Reels or TikTok. There is video showing how the tech actually works. And all of it is to iterate the real time and speed. All right, so now that you understand kind of a high level framework of how to build a marketing strategy, how do you build your own brand? It's actually, you can use the same framework. So on positioning, put yourself in the seat and really, I guess get deep. You need to ask the right questions. And I think the questions that I as a marketer would ask the developer or a founder is, why are you building this? Where does this conviction come from? What are you excited about? And what do you disagree or have tension with that caused you to build this? What I usually say to people in crypto who are builders is you're so smart. Like sometimes I see the technical docs and it goes way over my head as a marketer. I believe and I imagine you can work at any big tech company in the world. You could work at an AI company, you can work at Fang. So there has to be a reason and an emotional reason why you're building what you're building versus doing that instead. You also only have 24 hours in your day. Under audiences, it's who are you building it for and who else is building it. Questioning who else is building it allows you to see who they are reaching. And these are people that might also be in your audience that you can connect with and talk to. On narratives and messaging, we'll go through this in a bit, but it could be anything from company updates. If you hired someone new, you can use a more casual tone of voice about it. Personal. So you can always use your own personal brand to extend outside of what you're building and show more of your daily life. It should all be balanced, of course. Competition. So the space, the industry, who else is building alongside you, and you can get into that conversation if there are things that they are saying that you don't agree with. And anything related to the team, highlighting your team, talking about new hires, talking about your vision, and an industry which could be a greater whole of just crypto itself. On channels, tactics, and content, it really comes down to being on social, being active, replying and posting. It's not a one-time thing, right? So you could put out a really, really good piece of content and people might remember you for that day, but probably even less because our attention spans are tiny. So you need to be really consistent. And a lot of this, as of right now, today in November 2024, most of crypto is living on X. So that would likely be the main arena to play in. But that could change over time as the space matures more. All right, so what should you even yap about? I wanted to make this as high level as possible, and I'll touch on why in just a moment when we get to rhizomatics. So it could be spicy takes, but it all comes down to your conviction and authenticity. And that's why I think spicy takes, contrarian takes, people really resonate with it because it shows like, wow, this person is real, they're being authentic, they have a personality. So you can do this about the whole space, like the industry, you can do it about your competition. And ultimately, it's why does your product deserve to exist? And remember, you need to repeat this over and over and over again because people forget. The other thing I want to touch on too about repetition and consistency is whenever people see your profile picture, which is why Story has the squiggly lines with IP or Eclipse has an affiliate badge and the logo next to their names, and everyone on the team has the same PFP with the matching colors. The more you are engaging with people and the more you're posting and being consistent, there is a single line of aligned visual identity, and our brains are also absorbing things visually too. So no matter what, you need to be consistent with what you are saying, but also how you show up. It's also why like my personal profile picture, it's an old picture. My hair is completely different now, and I just have not changed it because I know it's familiar. Another thing you can ask yourself is, what are you an expert on? So for example, I'm not a founder, I'm a marketer, and my version of building in public is sharing things that I find interesting about marketing, things that I've learned. I'd like to show data to back it up. It's also connected with what do I find interesting. And there is an emotional reason why you're building what you're building, right? So if you can really distill that and showcase your expertise and how you find it interesting, it allows people to connect with you. And I think the last one is really great, just combating any criticism. Anytime someone questions, like, why another L2? Why you? That is your time to use that tension and launch yourself into the arena. So it all comes down to your conviction. All right, so how do you actually yap about this? All right, there's two things or two categories I'd like to put this into. There's the internal, which is the yin, external, which is the yang. And even though there's a yin yang symbol here, it's all about balance, and balance doesn't necessarily mean 50-50. So on the left side with internal, I can do posts. I can just tweet and click post. I can also do X spaces and host them. I can do streams. This is all about any words that come directly from me, where external is replying to people that reply back to you. And also note that the faster you do it, they are getting a notification. They see your face. They see that you're active. They see that you're accessible. That's huge for audiences and potential community members. Quote tweeting others or quote posting others, I guess, since Twitter's now X. This gives a notification to whoever is posting that take. And it also shows your expertise if you have a contrarian take or you want to echo whatever that person is saying. And then also replying to others on their posts as well. So I look on the right side as external and the left side as things that you can do on your personal page. Now, I want to go back to that balance piece of this is not 50-50. So when your account has relatively low followers and less traction, you need to show up. So you also need to get distribution for your own personal account, right? So getting distribution on your account first will also help get distribution to your brand's account. It's kind of like, it is a journey. If you are also posting from your brand, you need to get distribution for the brand. But like I showed earlier, it's very likely that more people will follow you versus the brand. And you can also be a bit more authentic, casual, spicy from your personal. So going back to it's not 50-50, but there is a balance. If you have a relatively fresh account, you should be doing a lot more of the things on the right. You also want to make sure that you do have good posts on your page, because every time you like a post, every time you reply, every time you quote retweet, it notifies everyone involved and everyone tagged. And that's actually an opportunity for your profile picture, your name to pop up in front of their eyeballs. And there is a chance that they might go to your profile. And if it resonates with them, if they see other takes that they find interesting or relate to or connect with, they will follow you. And that's how this whole game works. Now, as your account grows, you can now focus more on the internal side and just post takes, and you will get a lot more engagement because you've built up some type of following. All right, rhizomatics. Let me also pause this because I need to charge my laptop. Okay, moving back into rhizomatics. So my experience with developers and builders and people that like to code they are very linear, systematic thinkers. So we're going to put this into a formula. This is a conversation I had, and they mentioned Riz is a time average concept. One tweet, not enough. It is conviction times clarity times intensity. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier of you need to be consistent, you need to be repetitive. There is a level of frequency people need to see and hear things for it to be absorbed and for them to understand who you are. It's also why whenever you go to I always use this example, but it's only relative if you've been to Japan or Hong Kong, and if you've been to the store called Donkey, where they play the same song over and over and over again. It's like a Pavlovian response where you hear it and you remember. It's anchored. But the point is that one tweet is not enough. You can post a banger, and if it's not consistent, and if you're not consistently engaging with people, and they only see your profile picture or name once, they will forget. My response to this was sometimes intensity can backfire. Personally, for my own self, like who I am and me, I don't really like being mean online or being too controversial. So my take was maybe it's conviction times clarity times frequency. But the whole thing I want you to take away from this is trying to make Riz mathematical or systematic is the complete opposite of what Riz is. Because ultimately, to build a personal brand and to build, I guess, be relatable and also build some type of external perceived charisma, it does come down to that piece of authenticity and creativity, which when we are trying to over-engineer the how, it tends to cut and take away from creativity. So I say this about marketing a lot, even in data-driven marketing, even though everything can be tracked. If you are too over-dependent on frameworks without having some clarity and time to think about why you're doing what you're doing and letting intuition or creativity arise, you may actually be doing yourself a disservice. So in the next slide, I will show you some actual data on how you could use data to grow your account. This is from the data-driven crypto marketing decks I've done. But I will caveat, I actually never look at this. I just post intuitively based on what I think is interesting, things that really excite me, things that I learned. However, not everyone is the same. So there are ways you could use data to inform how you post. I for sure use data to inform other things, like is this website working or not? Are people dropping off in this onboarding flow? But what I want to call out here is make sure you never lose that edge of your own genuinity, authenticity, and creativity, because that does play a role. Okay, so if you have X Premium, which I think costs anywhere from $8 to $15 a month, depending on what country you're in. If you go to Premium, the Premium tab and Analytics, X has horrible UX. They should have made it easier to find. But if you go there, you can actually find this screen on the left here, and you can create a line chart, and there's multiple metrics you can use. It could be replies, engagement. I like to look at impressions and new follows. You could also look at any of these metrics down here, and you can compare over a time period of up to 1 year. If you want to get really nerdy with this, you can also export it to a CSV, make pivot tables, whatever you want. So here you can see like this is my impressions relative to new follows. And the other thing I want to call out is even if people don't follow you, if you engage with them, there is a high likelihood they will see your tweets and it creates new impressions, which is why even though I have a small account, there's a lot of impressions here, over 1 million, as you can see. Now, numbers tell stories, and a way that I read these numbers is profile visits. This is, to me, how did people, like my discoverability. So, number one, was my take interesting enough to where they wanted to come to my profile? That could be a reason. But ultimately, it's also like, how many people am I reaching outside of my followers? The other thing I look at is reposts and bookmarks. Bookmarks is a huge one because that means that someone found this content valuable. It could have been educational, it could be funny, maybe it's a meme they want to repurpose. But I look at bookmarks as a high signal of, okay, people are seeing this content high level as educational, and maybe they don't read all of it and they want to read it later, or they read it and they gained value from it and they want to save it. Reposts are also kind of a badge of honor. It's like, okay, this person is willing to use up their timeline space to support and uplift me. And then you can also look at replies as, is it engaging? Ever since likes are now private, it's less of a quality signal. And you can like everything because your name and face will pop up. But replies are a higher signal. They also help with the algorithm if you're trying to reverse engineer it. But again, yeah, don't over engineer it. On the right side here, you can actually go into content. So if you click on the content tab, this will open up, and you can filter things by posts, replies, and something else. I think maybe it's like quote retweets. Same thing, you can pull up a time period. So this is the same 3 months. And then you can actually sort these by recency or date, impressions, as well as likes, replies, reposts. So here I have it actually going from high to low on impressions, because the question I'm trying to understand is, what content do people like? And the word like here, I'm referring to what content are people sharing, engaging with, what content is valuable. And as you can see, the top content I posted in the last 3 months that gets the most visibility, even visibility outside of my own circle, is all about like people love data. They like to see marketing takes with some data backed up. So literally all I yap about now is marketing. Like I might have like 5% personality posts, I guess, but yeah, my whole personality is marketing now. And also this is my version of building in public. So again, I said I'm not necessarily a founder or a builder, but you as a founder or builder, there is something you're building. You might as well build in public as well. All right, the last thing I want to share here is, this is Claire Cart, and at GTMCon on Sunday, which was not recorded at all, she did a whole deck on building your own brand, BYOB, yeah, building your own brand. And this is a slide where it just comes down to just do it. Again, if you don't over-engineer things, you just need to do it. And if you look at what the slide says, so define who you want to be. Some of those questions that I asked earlier on how to distill your conviction and why you're doing what you're doing, communicating that over and over again. The questions you can see here are, what makes you unique? Why would anyone stop scrolling and listen to you? So what is your expertise? What do you find interesting? Maybe someone else finds it interesting as well. Make 5 friends. The internet is full of people. It's not accounts or followers. Make some friends, co-post at conferences, DM and reply. I think being a founder that is accessible is a huge difference versus a founder with amazing tech that is not accessible at all and no one can reach out to them. Write one banger, get into people's algorithm with one really good tweet. I agree with this, but you need to do it over and over and over again. One isn't enough. Post 3 times a week. Once you are in the feed, stay there. I really love this a lot. Make sure you set a goal on how to stay consistent and post and show up. Create a routine. I will say, so personally for me, like I said, I don't use the data to inform what I should tweet about anymore. I just intuitively do it. I also have just been nonstop thinking about marketing this week at DevCon. And I think I'm actually posting too much because there's just new ideas coming into my head all the time. There's a lot of people where this might not be the case and they actually need to focus on building, right? Like building the product. And in this case, there are people I know, like Jim from Catalyst, that has mentioned he schedules his tweets. So whenever you think of an idea, write it down. You can put it in your drafts. You can schedule it natively in X for free on desktop, and it will post automatically. The other thing I personally do, it works for me, it might not work for everyone, is I don't like to, one, I don't schedule things like I said, but whenever I have ideas, I write the concept down, I save it to my drafts, and whenever I feel like, okay, I need to post something, and my goal usually is once a day, I will open my drafts, see if there's a topic there that I saved previously, and I write it out on the spot just so I have the most intuitive take at that moment. And that is everything. Thank you if you listened and watched this whole thing. At Sozu House, I had to do this in 10 minutes, so this was kind of a extended version of it, and it allowed me to explain the nuances and some other tips. If you have any questions, feel free to DM or comment. Thanks.